Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Kidder. I'm the National Outreach Director for College Living Experience, and we are so excited to have you with us tonight. Many of you know we host a variety of webinars throughout the year on topics relevant to families of children with varying levels of need. Each event is really designed to provide insight, resources, and real-world perspectives to help you navigate your child's transition into independent adulthood. Now, we would love for you to stay connected with CLE and really be in the know about all upcoming future events, both virtual sessions and all of the exciting things that happen at all of our 8 CLE locations around the country. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram for updates, upcoming events, and resources, all the socials. But before we get started, just a few really quick housekeeping notes. Because we have about 240 families and professionals logged in, your cameras and microphones have been disabled so that our presenter has the spotlight, and in this case, the screen. Also, because we have such a large audience, we may not have time to get to all of your questions at the end, but please continue to drop your questions in the chat as Heather progresses through her presentation. Those that we don't answer live at the end, I will capture and create a Q&A document that will be attached to the follow-up email. And lastly, I am recording today's presentation, and we'll share the link with all registrants here in just a few days. So please feel free to pass that along to other families or professionals who you feel might benefit from tonight's conversation. Now, with all of that, I am thrilled to introduce to you all Heather Ackart with Driveways. Heather is a licensed occupational therapist and certified driving rehabilitation specialist based in Fort Collins, Colorado. She has a background in psychology, cognitive neuroscience, and a master's in occupational therapy, bringing a thoughtful, personalized approach to helping individuals build independence through driving. Heather draws on both personal and professional experience to support individuals of all ages in unlocking their unique strengths. And she's deeply passionate about accessibility, equity, and meeting people where they are. And Heather truly believes that challenges often live in the environment and not in the individual. So I am so excited to have Heather with us to share some practical strategies as you navigate that transition from passenger to driver with your young adult. So Heather, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Jamie. So thank you guys for joining in. I know it's late for some of you guys on the East Coast, and so I really appreciate your time and attention to come and nerd out with me on some driving. I don't think that this was a plan for me to address driving when I was in OT school, but I really have found my place and what I love to do. I don't think that there's any bigger bang for your buck as an OT to see the entire trajectory of a young adult's life with just access to the community and being able to drive. So I absolutely love what I do. And so, as Jamie was saying, my name is Heather Ackart. I am an occupational therapist and a certified driving rehabilitation specialist. I own my own practice, Driveways, in Fort Collins, Colorado. I work with teens and young adults and all the way across the driving spectrum, but I assess driving readiness and provide individualized in-vehicle training. I support clients with a wide range of needs, including autism, ADHD, anxiety, physical disabilities, and other cognitive, visual, or emotional barriers. My goal is to help each young adult develop the skills, confidence, and strategies they need to drive safely and successfully. So these are some of the learning objectives that I'm hoping to hit today. The first is understanding why driver readiness is essential for teen independence and safety. So driving represents freedom and independence for many teens, but it's also a serious responsibility. Readiness isn't just about passing a driving test. It's about being prepared to handle real-world road situations safely. When we focus on readiness first, we help protect our young drivers, their passengers, and everyone else on the road. I think another piece is going to be identifying and recognizing signs for driving readiness and identifying key skills that are necessary for safe and successful driving. So we'll talk about what driving readiness actually looks like. Things like attention, decision making, emotional regulation, and understanding rules of the road. Recognizing these signs can help families know when a young adult might be ready to start or when more preparation is needed. And then also learning how strengths-based, personalized approaches can help build confidence and address barriers. So every young adult brings a unique set of strengths and challenges. A personalized, strength-based approach helps build confidence while also creating strategies to work through barriers, whether that's anxiety, attention, sensory sensitivities, or executive functioning demands. And then we're going to look at some practical tools and ways to help support early skill building from the passenger seat or in the home and community. So parents and caregivers honestly play a powerful role long before a teen ever gets behind the wheel. We'll explore some simple activities and tools that can help build driving related skills early, even from the passenger seat or at the grocery store, and why starting early makes such a big difference. Also, I really hope everyone leaves here feeling empowered as a parent and advocate through your young adult's driving journey. So I want you to feel informed, supported, and confident in your role, and to realize that you don't have to navigate this alone, and your advocacy can make a real impact on your young adult's success. So why driving is important to begin with. Driving is more than just transportation. It's a key to independence. It allows young adults to stay socially connected, participate in recreational activities, access jobs and higher education, attend medical appointments, shop for daily needs, and engage in services that support independent living. When driving is possible and safe, it opens doors to fuller community participation. And so this is more of why is driver readiness important. The big first one is safety. Driving is one of the most complex and high-risk activities we all do every day. When a young adult is truly ready to drive, it helps them keep safe and it also protects passengers, pedestrians, and other drivers. Our goal is not just to get a license, but to build lifelong safe driving habits. The other piece is vehicle control. A driver needs to be able to react quickly, braking suddenly, steering around hazards, or adjusting speed in traffic. Driver readiness means having the physical coordination, attention, and confidence to handle the vehicle in all kinds of situations. Understanding rules and routines is a big one. Driving depends on knowing the rules of the road, like traffic signs, signals, and right-of-way, but also understanding what to expect from other drivers. Predictable routines like consistent scanning patterns or step-by-step approaches to intersections can help make driving feel more manageable and safer. Executive functioning skills. Driving requires planning ahead, managing time, paying attention to multiple things at once, and making quick decisions. Many neurodivergent young adults benefit from strategies and supports to strengthen these skills before and during driving. Another piece, especially with this population, is sensory regulation. The driving environment can be sensory rich. Engine noise, traffic sounds, bright headlights, vibrations, and even how the seat belt feels when it's going across their shoulder. When we recognize sensory sensitivities ahead of time, we can put strategies in place to help drivers stay regulated and focused. So I'm going to go over just some key skills that are involved with driving. And so the first one, really looking deeply at the cognitive and executive functioning skills that are required for driving readiness. Safe driving relies on a combination of thinking, visual, emotional, and motor skills, not just knowing how to operate a car. First, cognitive and executive functioning plays a major role. This includes different types of attention, staying focused over time, shifting attention between tasks, filtering distractions, and handling multiple demands at once. Judgment and problem solving help drivers make safe decisions in unpredictable situations, like responding to sudden traffic changes or unexpected hazards. Emotional regulation and stress tolerance are important because driving can feel overwhelming. Being able to stay calm and recover from stress supports safer choices on the road. Processing speed affects how quickly a driver can notice information and respond appropriately, such as reacting to brake lights or changing signals. Impulse control helps drivers pause, think, and act safely rather than reacting too quickly. Sequencing complex movements allow drivers to coordinate steering, braking, and signaling smoothly. Memory supports learning traffic rules, remembering routes, and applying driving routines consistently. And finally, situational awareness really just ties everything together, noticing what's happening around the vehicle, anticipating what might happen next, and adjusting their behavior accordingly. This is some of the body factors, the muscles and the body movements. Driving is a physical task. It requires the body to move efficiently and respond quickly. Reflexes and involuntary movements play a role in how we respond to sudden situations, like needing to brake quickly or correct steering. Voluntary movement is important for intentionally controlling the vehicle, using the pedals, steering the wheel, and using the signals. For some neurodiverse individuals, movement patterns or stims may need to be considered when planning safe driving strategies. I often take stim breaks with my students. We pull over and just get the stims out, get the nervousness out, and then we move on with our drive. Muscle control, strength, and range of motion affect a driver's ability to steer, brake, turn their head to check the blind spots, and maintain posture behind the wheel. Coordination allows the drivers to smoothly combine movements, steering while braking, checking mirrors while maintaining lane positioning. Reaction speed ties all of these together on how quickly the body responds once the brain makes a decision. Strong physical readiness supports safe and confident vehicle control. And so I want to add another piece in here that there is a vast amount of adaptive equipment that can be installed and used to control a vehicle if there are any physical barriers that need to be considered, such as hand controls for gas and brake or various steering knobs to support steering. An OT and certified driving rehab specialist can help your teen with identifying the appropriate equipment and train them in their use to get it put in their vehicle. Here's another big piece is the sensory system that contributes to driving readiness. So driving depends heavily on how we take in and process sensory information from the environment. Vision is the primary sense used in driving. Drivers rely on visual information to read signs, judge distance and speed, monitor traffic, and detect hazards. Strong visual skills are essential for safe driving. Then there's proprioceptive functions, which help us understand where our body is in space without looking, like knowing how far to press the brake or how much to turn the steering wheel. This supports smooth and accurate vehicle control. Touch, especially sensation in the hands and feet, allows drivers to feel the steering wheel, the pedals, and the vibrations from the vehicle. This feedback helps regulate pressure and movement. Hearing provides important cues. Sirens, horns, approaching vehicles, or changes in engine sound, all of which support situational awareness. Smell is less obvious, but it can alert a driver to vehicle issues, such as overheating or mechanical problems. When the sensory systems work together effectively, drivers are better able to stay aware, regulate their responses, and remain safe on the road. So, because driving is such a visually demanding task, a strong vision and visual perceptual skills are essential for safety on the road. So first are the basic visual functions. Visual acuity is the ability to just see clearly, reading signs and spotting hazards and recognizing signals. Visual field refers to seeing not only what's directly in front of them, but also what's happening to the sides, which is critical for detecting cars, pedestrians, and cyclists. Binocular vision allows both eyes to work together as a team, supporting depth perception and smooth scanning. Eye movements and tracking skills help drivers shift their gaze efficiently between the mirrors, the dashboard, and the road ahead. Contrast sensitivity supports seeing objects in low light, rain, or in glare conditions. Next are the visual perceptual skills, which help the brain make sense of what the eyes are seeing. Visual discrimination helps drivers notice small but important differences, like distinguishing traffic lights or reading road signs quickly. Visual memory supports remembering routes, landmarks, and driving routines. Visual spatial awareness helps drivers judge lane position, spacing, and how their car fits within the environment. And depth perception allows drivers to judge distance and the speed of other vehicles, which is essential for merging, passing, and stopping safely. Together, these skills allow drivers not just to see the road, but to understand and respond to it safely. So other skills that you are going to need for driving readiness is communication and social skills. It's not just about vision, cognitive, and motor skills. Drivers need to be able to acknowledge and encourage others on their road. Simple gestures like waving a pedestrian to cross safely show awareness and cooperation. They also need to follow turn-taking rules and communicate intentions clearly, using blinkers when merging or participating appropriately at a four-way intersection. Regulation is another key skill. Drivers must avoid impulsive behaviors and manage their emotions like anxiety, frustration, or excitement, so they can respond safely to the dynamic traffic situation. Together, these social and emotional skills help drivers interact safely with others and make responsible decisions on the road. So, making sense of all of those skills. I know when we talk about all these different skills, cognitive, motor, visual, sensory, social, it can start to feel overwhelming. Even listing them all out with all of the OT speak makes you realize how much your young adult is being asked to manage when they sit behind the wheel. For neurodiverse individuals, it's not usually just one skill area that's the challenge. It's the integration of all of them at once, seeing, thinking, moving, and responding simultaneously in a complex, unpredictable environment. Driving is high risk because everything has to work together in real time. That's why a strengths-based, personalized approach is so important. We break driving down into manageable steps, focusing on driving skills individually first before placing your young adult behind the wheel to try to integrate them all. By practicing each piece and building confidence in a safe, structured ways, we set them up for success rather than overwhelm. And so we'll talk about some tools and activities that can be used to build the skills for driver readiness in the community and home and in other ways. So one of the first ways to work on the cognition pieces. When we talk about building the cognition skills needed for driving, it's helpful to think about activities that are practical, engaging, and tailored to your young adult's strengths. Activities that require attention shifting, like cooking or games that switch rules mid-play, can help improve flexibility and focus. Memory and rule-based board games are another fun way to build recall, sequencing, and following instructions while highlighting areas where your teen already excels. Opportunities for simple decision-making, even small everyday choices, allow them to practice evaluating options and consequences in a low-pressure setting. Active problem-solving exercises like puzzles or planning tasks can help strengthen reasoning and critical thinking. Visual planning tasks like organizing a route on a map or planning steps for a project build skills that directly translate to planning and navigating on the road. By connecting these activities to your young adult's interests and strengths, we can make skill building enjoyable, empowering, and effective. And so building some of the visual skills. Good vision is obviously critical for driving, but we can make developing these skills fun and personalized for teens. Proper seating in the vehicle is the first step. Make sure your teen can see clearly out of the windows and in mirrors and dashboard. When possible and legal within your state, have them sitting in the passenger seat as much as possible and as early as possible, and pointing out signs, other drivers' behaviors, and other important factors that a driver needs to attend to. This simple adjustment can make a big difference in confidence and comfort behind the wheel. Scanning games while you're in the car are also a great way to practice visual attention in a low-pressure, playful way. Look for road signs, spot license plates, or play I Spy to strengthen tracking and observational skills. These can be tailored to your teen's interest. For example, spotting their favorite car, like Slug Bug. We used to always play Slug Bug. Spotting their favorite cars, so state license plates or places that they have or want to visit can make it enjoyable. My kiddos like to play a rainbow game where we each start at red and you can't use the same vehicle as somebody else in the car has already used. And we try to work all the way to purple, which is one of the hardest ones to get. And so that's honestly, and my kids are teenagers now, tweens, and that one's still a fun one. They love to play that game. Um, Activities that involve visual tracking and pursuits, like following a moving object with your eyes, also support smooth eye movements and coordination needed for safe driving. And yes, this does include video games. Finally, routine vision screens and checkups are essential. So just knowing that your teen's visual strengths and any areas to support helps us create strategies to play with to what they do well while addressing challenges before they get behind the wheel. And so visual perceptual skills. This is always a fun one, honestly, for my teens to know that this is all helpful in driving. It helps their teen understand where objects are in space and how they move, which is critical for safe driving. One of the best ways to develop these skills is through activities that involve moving objects and other vehicles. So bikes, roller skates, go-karts, sleds, even shopping carts can give teens opportunities to judge speed, distance, and direction in a safe, controlled way. Tracking moving objects with their eyes and body helps strengthen the coordination needed to scan the road, check mirrors, and anticipate hazards. Obstacle courses or games that require navigating around objects build spatial awareness and attention shifting skills. Even incorporating fun, team-based games or challenges that require timing and coordination can make skill building enjoyable while addressing key areas that will help your teens succeed behind the wheel. And so I can always hear the teens cheering at this part. Video games is a big one. So interactive games like Nintendo Switch or Wii, which is a really good one. I know it's probably dating me that I mentioned that one, but it does have a lot of components that introduce hands and feet into it. So they can be a powerful tool for building many of the skills that support driving. Games that often require arm and leg coordination, timing, and reaction speed, all in a fun and engaging format. They also strengthen visual motor integration, hand-eye or foot-eye coordination, which are essential for steering, braking, and operating control safely. Because games are structured yet flexible, they create opportunities for emotional regulation, learning patience, impulse control, and persistence, as well as social engagement when playing with friends and family. Some games even encourage movement that builds muscle strength and endurance, helping teens gain the physical readiness needed for driving. By combining these elements in a motivating, playful way, we can practice many driving-related skills from the home. This is a great app. Drive Focus is a great tool designed to help teens build the visual and cognitive skills needed for driving. It focuses on visual search skills, helping users learn to scan and notice important objects on the road. At the same time, it provides practice with selective and sustained attention, which is essential for noticing multiple things at once when driving. This app can be graded from low to high complexity, so teens can start at a comfortable level and progress as their skills improve. Users can also adjust the speed that the video is going, making it easier for those who need more time to process information. Drive Focus was created by an occupational therapist named Miriam Monahan, specifically to support driver readiness skills, so it's grounded in research and practice. It's available on Android tablets and iPads for a one-time cost of $13.99, making it accessible and flexible way for teens to practice important skills safely off of the road. I did add a little QR code there on the screen, and then I think Jamie's going to create a resource list later, so if you don't get that, it's no big deal. And one that I use in my evaluation process is the Adolescent Life Skills Checklist. It's an assessment tool designed to help teens build executive functioning skills through practical everyday activities. It provides both the parents and the teens with a conceptual scaffolding that helps them understand what skills to focus on and how to progress. It makes this planning and teaching life skills more structured and manageable. The tool also gives measurable baselines and outcomes, so families and clinicians can set clear, achievable goals and track progress over time. Importantly, it supports the development of generalizable executive functioning skills, skills that not only help in daily life, but also translate directly to driving readiness, such as planning, problem solving, attention, and decision making. So this is just kind of a little example of the laundry section in the adolescent skill checklist. So doing laundry might seem simple, but it's actually a great way to practice higher level executive functioning skills. It starts with basic steps like sorting the clothes by color or fabric, which requires attention, organization, and planning. And then as the teen progresses, folding and putting clothes away, it supports sequencing and memory skills. Operating the washing machine or dryer adds another layer. Reading clothing labels, selecting cycles, measuring detergent, managing timing, all of which require problem solving, planning, and decision making. The goal is for the teens to work through all of these steps independently so that on the checklist for life skills, all of the steps fall under does so without assistance or supervision. This provides a clear, measurable benchmark for skill mastery and independence. And so here's another quick example of how everyday activities in the community, like pushing a shopping cart, can help build important driving skills. Um, so practicing scanning for obstacles and items, adjusting their speed, looking both ways at the end of the aisle, recognizing that there are a pattern and rules of if you're heading in one direction, you're on the right, where oncoming is going to a lot of times to the left, and adjusting your speed and trajectory if that's not always the case. Um, it's all a real world, it's all practicing driving in a baby way in a real world safe environment. You'll also notice how these activities can be stepped up to include planning, budgeting, and time management. There are a lot of visual complexity in the grocery store. Shelves full of items, people moving, carts coming from different directions. Now imagine how overwhelming it can feel to process a constant stream of road signs, lane markings, other vehicles, and hazards, all while moving at a much higher speed and in a far more high-risk environment. This is why breaking down the higher level components and building these skills first, before asking the team to integrate everything at once, helps them feel more in control and builds confidence. We'll start with some of the visual scanning skills first. And so imagine sending your teen into this very cluttered room, maybe their room kind of looks just as cluttered like mine, and asking them to take a look around. Now let's just do this together. I'll give you guys about 10 seconds, so look around and we'll come back and talk about it. All right, so then whenever your teen comes back out, you ask, okay, well, how many clocks were in the room? Most of the time, they might remember seeing one or two, or they might not even be sure at all. But now imagine sending them into that same room for 10 seconds, but this time tell them ahead of time. When the time is up, I'm going to ask you how many clocks there are in there. This time, they're going to give you a much more accurate answer. The difference is how their brain was engaged. In the second example, they weren't just passively looking around and scanning. They activated a higher level of processing in the brain, specifically the executive functioning system, which works together with the eyes to intentionally search and locate. This is the same concept that we want to apply to driving. When teens ride in the car with us, they're often just passively scanning like they've done their whole life. Our job is to help them train both their eyes and their brain to actively search for the critical items on the road, like signals, signs, pedestrians, brake lights, before they also have to manage decision making and coordinate their hands and feet to control the vehicle also. By building this skill intentionally and step by step, we reduce the overwhelm and set them up for a safer, more successful driving. And so this is one of the activities I'll do in the vehicle with my students to even determine whether or not they're ready to even get a permit. I can tell a lot by doing this activity. I have them sitting in the passenger seat while I'm actually driving. And so this passenger seat activity builds on the same idea as the grocery store or the clocks example. Instead of passively looking around, we're teaching the brain and eyes to actively search for specific critical items before the teen ever takes control of the vehicle. Using a secondary rear view mirror, as pictured here, clipped on the visor, I have one of these in my car. This isn't my car, but instead of looking in the back seat, you actually have them angle it up so that they can see behind the vehicle. I'll have the teen practice identifying whether a car is behind us every time I use my brake to slow or stop the vehicle. This allows them to start practicing building their awareness of 360 degrees around the vehicle and building the habit of checking the rearview mirror every time they brake. It's also helpful for me, once I do transition them into the driver's seat, to have a way to quickly check the vehicle's surroundings. They're also asked to call out stop signs that are facing us. Traffic lights that are up ahead, as soon as they see them, tell me what color it is. And if it changes colors, let me know. What speed limit signs, what's the speed limit? Brake lights of the car that's directly in front of us, side streets. A lot of times with the side streets, my students will sometimes struggle with the processing of verbalizing left and right. So I have them just use their hand to gesture to the left or to the right or both at the same time if we're going past a street that's a full intersection, a four-way intersection. And that's kind of the idea is I want them to not do that at parking lots or alleys, but specifically identifying when you're passing through an intersection, because that's where the vehicles are going to be coming from, or the pedestrians could potentially be waiting, or where you're going to need to scan ahead and determine who has the stop sign so that you can create a plan of action. So just waking them up to the idea that they need to be scanning the sides of the road for signs of an intersection. And then finally, pedestrians and bicyclists. So 7 things in all. I add these things on one at a time, only adding the next one when the previous skill is successful and they're successfully juggling 2 things and then 3 things. And when they get to about 80%, 90% of the time, I will then add on one more. Sometimes I'll even ask them, because if they already feel overwhelmed, that's not my intention. I want them to be able to practice at their own pace and continue practicing and adding them on as they're able. This helps us see how well the teen scans, shifts attention, and processes multiple pieces of information without becoming overwhelmed. As skills improve, we gradually move into more visually complex areas and extend the practice time. This allows me to observe fatigue, frustration tolerance, and regulation, all while building confidence. This step-by-step structured approach supports safe skill integration before everything has to come together. It's also a good measurement tool for you to determine their readiness. When they're able to juggle all 7 things at 90 to 95% accuracy, at least this component of it is ready to at least be challenged into a higher level. And so another way that I'll do this activity separately than the visual scanning piece. It's a whole other activity, but I do start to integrate them as they start mastering both. And so this piece is a decision making. So I'm still having them ride along in the passenger seat. And this helps teens practice the mental skills needed for driving without the added pressure of actually controlling the vehicle. So you'll still be in charge of that. As they identify signs, signals, brake lights, pedestrians, and other vehicles, they're learning to judge time and speed, apply road rules, and anticipate what others might do next. Now they're also asked to begin making real-world driving decisions, such as when it's safe to go at an intersection, when it's appropriate to change lanes, and when they need more information before deciding. If they can't see well enough to make a safe decision, encourage them to ask you to creep forward to get a better view. This reinforces an important concept. Sometimes the safest decision is recognizing when you don't have enough information. Providing feedback in these moments helps teens learn road rules and also understand that many driving decisions involve gray areas and judgment calls, not just black and white rules. Practicing from the passenger seat allows us to slow things down, talk through choices, and build confidence before those same decisions need to be made while also steering, braking, and managing speed. It allows the teen to make errors and learn from them in a risk-free way. And so this is an important piece for all of you guys who are all over the country. So the Certified Driving Rehabilitation Specialists, our association is called ADID. And that is where we are not only going to get our specialized training for working with individuals in a vehicle, but also where there's quite a bit of training for working with neurodivergent youth, as many people are recognizing this as a huge need. In the United States, occupational therapists are increasingly specializing in these areas, particularly for teens and young adults with neurodiverse profiles. In other countries, such as Australia, it's actually very common for an OT CDRS, who's also a certified driving rehab specialist, to provide driving instructor for anyone identified with a neurodiverse condition. Traditional driver's education does not have the specialized training or professional lens to address the unique cognitive, sensory, and motor demands that driving requires for neurodiverse individuals. And so the ADID website is a great resource for locating an occupational therapist who is also a certified driving rehab specialist in your area. When searching, you can narrow your search to include members with the autism badge. And so this QR code that I've put on the slide will take you directly to the page that has the people that have the autism badge so that you can search your state and see where one might be located near you. Also, I put instructions down there of just kind of the sequence that you would go through to search for it. These professionals have specialized education and training to evaluate, teach new drivers with a wide range of strengths and challenges commonly seen in the autism and broader neurodiverse community. Working with someone who has this expertise better ensures that the instruction is individualized, strength-based, and supportive of your teen's unique skills. And so I have a little bit of time, I think, for questions. If we're able to take some, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, Heather, we had several questions about the
Oh,
app in the Q&A. So can you go back to the slide where you talked about the app?
oh, the drive focus. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were several
Oh,
parents or several
yeah.
folks who wanted to have that
Yeah.
screen again.
Okay.
Grab
So
that.
I can talk a little bit about this too. So Miriam Monaghan is a researcher and a professor. She's retiring, and we're all very sad about that because she's the pioneer in working with neurodivergent youth and learning to drive. And she is who's has taught a lot of the classes for us that wanted to really start this as a focus for our practice. And so she hired a whole bunch of driving instructors so that they're also modeling good behavior of driving to attach a GoPro to right at like the windshield. And so these are real world roads that that the teen will be accessing um, all through the United States. It has different broken down into different states and different big cities, um, all including Australia, which, like I said, Australia, this is a very common practice for neurodivergent youth to be working with an occupational therapist and driving specialist there to learn how to drive. And it's score based, so it's kind of video game esque gamification. So you can get a total score as high up to 1,000 points. And you can go back and redo and find out where you missed the points. It's having you identify things, the critical items. And so you're prioritizing stuff like brake lights and traffic lights and stop signs and road markings that are indicating some sort of change. Pedestrians and bikes, that whole list of critical items, you're identifying with your finger and touching as you're driving through these roads. So it's a neat app, and it's $14 for a one-time fee. I think she collects the data on it without your name or anything, but I mean she's a researcher, so this is a big part of her research. She's now using it also with people with brain injuries and that have had strokes that are trying to get back to driving.
Heather, we had another question in
Yeah.
regard to Drive Focus. Is it an actual simulator? And do drivers use a gaming set steering wheel and an actual gas pedal?
No, it's I wish that we had something that was that complex, but honestly, this is pretty accessible in a way that it's really just for tablets, and so it's available right now only on iPads or Android tablets. I think she's trying to get a PC version developed, but as of right now, it is just on a tablet, and so it's just done with your finger, where you're just touching, visually scanning and touching.
And I could be dating myself too and not knowing the technology that exists out there. But are there video games that have? I know they have steering wheels. I mean, I think I've played
Yeah.
a couple car racing games before. But are there games out there that have the foot pedals? Um,
Yeah, and then there's simulators. Some people do work with simulators. I don't have one myself. Although I would actually love to have an Oculus and so that it's a little bit more of a immersive sort of experience. I've been in the simulators and they're just not quite the same. And there's a lot of reports of motion sickness and there's some other issues with how it reacts compared to what a real vehicle would do. But I'm hoping that there's more advancement in the area of for the sake of developing driving skills that they actually start developing instead of just Grand Theft Auto or something like that. That we need something that's a little bit more uh, functional for people who are learning to drive.
yeah,
Yeah.
these are great questions. Um, this is a good question. When taking the written driving test, do students have the option to have additional time or test taking supports, much like they would in a math class, with an IEP?
Yeah, I mean, at least in Colorado, and so I can't speak to all of the states. Wyoming's the same. I almost can't imagine that they wouldn't be able to. I would imagine ADA. I mean, that's really what Colorado's they are allowed to have headphones that also will put them from a printed form to an auditory form. I go with my students sometimes if I already know they're going to need additional support. They won't let me change the wording of the questions at all. That's one of the big ones that's kind of tough because if they have to really kind of know the vocabulary. Um, so practicing the practice tests and going over your state's handbook helps because they will use the same verbiage in those as they will the test. But especially my students that are not English or Spanish as the primary language, that's been it's been a challenge because they have to get a translator. They don't have the test available, at least here, in multiple different languages other than Spanish and English. So I'm hoping that that's something that we can change.
Where would you recommend parents look to find that information on their state's Department of Transportation website? Would they type in the search bar ADA or accommodations for driving test? Or, I mean, what kind of search words would they use to find
It's
that information
probably
on their
difficult to do
state?
it that way. I would probably call testing services, and so that's one of the yeah, it's at least what it's called in Wyoming and in Colorado. I know those two places. It's driver testing services. And I find that number online, and I'm hoping each state would have that because it's a number that I can reach out and call and say, hey, I've got the student that needs, like you said, a little bit extra time or less distractions. That's another one that's kind of difficult. If it's in like the Denver office, they don't have a separate room for them. They do allow you to do a from home, so a lot of the DMVs are now moving to a virtual option, but it's kind of proctored with some sort of AI that if your eyes are looking away from, because it has to have a camera on the computer, and if your eyes are consistently looking away from the screen, it kicks you off and then you just lose your money. It, gives you a incomplete score or whatever because so you have to make sure that the teen is ready to just focus on the screen, and when they're thinking they can't be looking off or maybe acting like they're speaking to somebody else, like so sometimes if they're reading out loud it may look like they could be speaking to somebody else. It's kind of it's very picky.
So here's another great question. My child has really struggled with the way the written instruction is presented online, and live classrooms seem to have disappeared since COVID. Any suggestions on how to motivate him to do the lessons or assist with retaining the content since it's not very engaging?
Yeah, I think the biggest way that I talk about with my parents is the parent is going to have to work through that handbook also so that they can, while they're in the vehicle, start applying those. And so maybe they read one section together and then they go out in the car with the student in the passenger seat and they start observing it in real time and applying it in real ways so that they're getting that visual learning, which a lot of my students are very, they benefit from having different ways of having the information explained to them. And so getting out into the real world and discussing, see, in this four-way stop, pull your car over if we're a place that you really know is a busy four-way stop, and then walk with your teen to the corner and just observe for 10 minutes about how the turn taking's happening, who's doing it correctly, if they did or didn't use their turn signal. And so just, I would say, observing real world traffic situations and applying those rules is probably my best suggestion for that. I did recently find on YouTube, at least with the Colorado handbook, somebody had went through and read the entire handbook. So if they do better with auditory books, like audiobooks, than they would with reading giant blocks of text. That was another way that I have passed on that little YouTube video to some of my students that benefited from that.
Are any of the state's driving books on Audible, or is it just?
I don't know. Like I said, I found somebody on YouTube, and I bet they have somebody for that for almost every state. I can imagine, at least, and or if not, then Colorado definitely has one. And then I can't imagine that there's going to be a huge amount of differences. Maybe that would be a good activity, is to have them identify anything that's conflicting to what they've already read or know to be true in their state.
Yeah, this is a good question too. What percentage of clients do you find are really, they really struggle to the point of it's just not safe for them to be behind the wheel, that they really
That really
struggle?
comes down to the readiness piece. And sometimes they're very, they live on their own and they've been through college, and it's just still so overwhelming. And a lot of times it's a sensitive nervous system too. And so they get in and elicits such intense anxiety, sometimes because they've already had something scary. Their family had tried, or grandpa tried to teach them to drive and put him out on the highway, and something scary, terrifying happened. And so it's just at this point an associated, a response that they get into the driver's wheel, or a conditioned response where they get in behind the wheel and they're in fight or flight immediately. And so they can't think clearly, make decisions clearly. So sometimes that will look like that they're not ready. But really what it really is just the emotional regulation piece, which could potentially be that they're not quite ready. But addressing some of those things I have had to do, where we are breaking the association that they have with this extreme anxiety response and sitting behind the wheel. Um, I feel like having them practice a lot of these things from the passenger seat works a lot of times, because they're not actually in a risk environment. And as they're getting better and better at it, and I'm telling them these are what we are all doing when we're driving, without even almost thinking about it anymore. We don't think about, oh, there's this brake lights, oh, there's a red light, oh, it turned green. We're not having to process that anymore in our brains. We are just, it's a motor learning sort of situation for us, that we can just kind of take in all of the information and process it. So having them get to that point where it's a much easier um, skill for them to complete, it builds a confidence that I think will help. I guess that might not answer the question completely, but I do see occasionally people that are not ready yet. I can't even say occasionally. I do see people that are not ready yet, but I've given them now these tools to go. I don't think I've ever said that you'll never be able to be a driver, because I don't have that kind of crystal ball. And it's so complex that they will have, like, I do all of these measurements for the vision and the physical functioning and the cognition, and all of the pieces of the puzzle sometimes are there. All looks beautiful. It's in the integration between all of those things that it starts breaking down. And so that's where, I guess, giving them homework and active steps to be practicing it. I have seen people that were not ready, and 6, 8 months later they came to me and they've been practicing diligently with their parent, And it was like night and day. It was amazing how much they had progressed and built the confidence to be to that they were ready. Executive functioning, we all know, takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it's more than just building the skills, although that's a very, very helpful component. And you should definitely be working on building those. But the frontal lobes are not fully developed until, I mean, research is now saying like 28 years old, especially with males. And that's neurotypical. And so if you add on a little bit more of a delayed, sometimes it's just that they need a little bit longer to have that development happen and the growth, but supporting it with activities that really pressure those systems is a great way to help develop those.
Yeah, that's great. A couple more questions about the app. How long has
Yeah.
the Drive Focus app been around? And you had mentioned it's for Apple and Android for both.
Yeah, yeah, Apple and Android. Gosh, that's a great question on the app. I am not 100% positive. I would have to look up to see when Miriam started developing that because she's now changed it, like I said, to also include other uses for people who are trying to get back to driving.
And while you are looking that up, this is a really great question.
Yeah.
Do they require a different insurance, or does a family even need to disclose to the insurance company that their young adult has a diagnosis?
No, which I'm actually glad for that that is not something that should be. But in places like Australia that I was mentioning earlier that were much more common, it's actually because they have to. If they have a diagnosis of autism or ADHD, they actually have to see one of us before they can get their license, which makes me happy in one way because I think we're better suited for that. But I never like the have to anything because of a diagnosis. So, but as far as the insurance is concerned, no, that shouldn't, that that I would imagine ADA also protects against that because same thing for hand controls. If somebody needs to drive with hand controls or adaptive equipment, insurance is not allowed to penalize them for that.
That was a great question.
Yeah.
And again, I will be capturing all of these questions, even though we have answered them. I want to make sure that even those families who were not able to log on tonight, when they get the recording, they will see all of Heather's presentation. But I do want them to also see all of the questions. So I will again be putting together a Q&A. Are there any more questions? We've got about 7 minutes left. Again, I want to be mindful of everyone's Thursday evening. Any more questions, throw those in the chat and we will either get them answered or we'll capture them and put them in the Q&A document that I'll put together.
Yeah, I'm not seeing how old Drive Focus is, just at least on their website, they don't have it readily available. But Android tablets, Chromebook, Apple iPad, Mac, and Vision Pro. If that's helpful.
Great. Well, I didn't see any. I've got one question. Tara asked a question, and I am going to tell you a little bit about CLE here in just a minute. But we'll go ahead. If there are no more questions for Heather, we will wrap up. I want to give just another 10 or 15. Here we go. Here's another question. Great. So the Maryland motor vehicle, I believe MVA, Monica, correct me, MVA is motor vehicles, requires that a diagnosis be shared. Does this cause my son to not be able to get his driver's license?
Oh, wow. I don't know. That's a great question. I have not heard that situation.
Now, I wonder, Monica, I wonder if that is for the license, and the question previously was for insurance. And so I wonder if a state, those licensing rules and regulations will be done by state. So that might be a good question to go onto their website.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm going to look that up because I have not heard of that happening. We do have an endorsement that you can add to your driver's license that has a little purple heart or something like that, and so that it identifies the driver as someone that could potentially be neurodiverse, and so that it prepares the officers for trying to be more understanding of someone who may appear more nervous or more agitated by their lights and their sirens and the scariness that of being pulled over. Um, but yeah, and I mean, there are states, or like most of the states require adaptive equipment to be identified and put on a license for restrictions. I just had not heard anything about them doing this for people with neurodiversity. I really don't like that, to be honest.
So
But I
again,
will look it up.
what we'll do, it says it looks like in Maryland, it's a voluntary to disclose a hidden
Okay.
disability. So it's voluntary.
Okay.
And what we'll do, again, I'm going to capture all of these questions and collaborate with Heather on getting them answered. And so we want to make sure that, if we're not able to directly answer the question, that we are at least giving you a launch pad and some ideas or thoughts on, different search terms to use, where to go to get your answers, your questions answered. So we want to make sure, again, we're going to capture all of those and make sure that we point you in the right direction. Actually, this was another really good question. I think if everyone's okay, we're just going to kind of go beyond 7:30 a few minutes, okay? Because this is another good question. Heather, can you talk a little bit about police interactions and how to potentially prepare your young adult to have those interactions with a police officer? That's a really great question.
It is. And so I've had meetings with the community engagement groups with the local departments, the fire and the police departments. And still have yet to do it, but we're supposed to. We had the shutdown, the government shutdown happen at right about the time we were supposed to do it, and it just kind of threw everything into a little bit of a chaos. So we need to reconvene because at least for my practice, I want to have it where we can do mock pullovers. And so there might be other programs out there that are also already doing this because it was mutually beneficial for me and my students as it was the police department being able to also educate their police officers on this is what it looks like. And then to have my students work through what's expected of them, what we need to do with our hands. Because I'll do a mock pullover now, but without the sirens and without the all of the sensory information and the honestly the fear that comes or nervousness that comes with having a police officer pull you over with sirens and lights. I really want to add that level of practice to our training sessions, but I haven't yet been able to, even though there is interest, I really think that this would be a easy thing to pull together. It's just getting everybody's timing down to where we can have a day and all of us meet together to do this. I don't know that that really helps, but advocating, I would say, for your community officers to be able to interact. And if maybe there's a day that I know that at least in Colorado, there's a ride along system where you can have your teen ride along with a police officer for a certain amount of the day, a couple of hours of the day. That might be some way that can help because they can discuss.
Heather, would you recommend taking your young adult to the police station and introducing them to
Yeah,
the police officers that are there?
exposure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. One of our parents brought up, that her son has had a bad experience with a school resource officer, and there's an association, with well, one police officer is bad, they're all bad, and so do
Yeah.
you recommend doing that?
Honestly, yeah, I feel like that's a great thing for like I said, both parties. Um, if they have friends that they want to have a group and go in together so that they feel a little bit more empowered in a group, to be able to go in, I think that that's a good idea. So it's not quite so scary to be the individual. I liked the idea of having a group and even having some of the braver of my students be the one that's actually driving and have a couple other students in the back seat so that they can watch what and learn from their peers of what's expected and what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's great. We had one parent mention in the Q&A, Pathfinders for Autism does practice police stops. And another parent offered that some autism organizations have mock driving with officers. In Maryland, they do the
Okay.
driving with an officer. So these are great. These are
Yeah.
fantastic. And again, I'm capturing all of this to put this all in the Q&A, even if it's comments, because there are so many parents that are traveling on this journey. That was a great pun, wasn't it? They're traveling on this journey.
Yes.
Anyway, it's late in the day.
There's always great driving
that,
puns. I
that
love
are
it.
traveling this journey with you. And so all of this information, it takes a village, right, to get this down. So I'm going to go ahead and again be mindful of everyone's time and kind of wrap this up, if that's okay. The Q&A is still open, so if you do have questions that you want to throw in there, please feel free to do that. Again, I'm going to capture them from this point forward and add them to the Q&A document. But Heather, a huge thank you to you for sharing your time and your expertise. And to everyone who logged on, thank you for spending your Thursday evening. It is Thursday, right? Your Thursday evening with us. And just as a quick reminder, the event was recorded and I will be sending a link along with Heather's contact information, the Q&A document that I've mentioned several times, and information on upcoming events and some more resources that Heather and I will put together to all of the registrants by midweek next week. And also the webinar will be uploaded to the events page of the CLE website. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. For those of you who don't know College Living Experience, we serve students preparing for college or employment who need guidance in executive function, daily routines, social connections, and independent living. We work toward, or our students are working toward either academic or career goals while receiving integrated instruction and coaching throughout the day, helping them gain confidence, and the foundation for long-term independence and self-directed living. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do, you can connect with one of our team members directly. We would love to hear from you, or you can reply to the follow-up email or visit our website at experiencecle.com. And remember all those socials. You can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And stay tuned for more webinars just like this one. And we've got one coming up in February, another in March, and our always popular Parent Perspective will be happening April 7th, which is a great opportunity to hear from parents of CLE students. This time it will be parents of CLE alumni, students who have been through our program and are now out doing great things in the world. So again, Heather, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you all so much for logging in. Again, click follow on those socials. If you have any questions, hit reply on that email follow-up that you'll be getting early next week. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, everyone.